Kingdom citizens, welcome back. How are you all doing? What is up with you all? I am excited to be back on for this week's episode. So as you guys can tell from the title of this episode, all right, it is titled Don't Count It Out. All right. So you probably read the title and you're like, what is Samantha talking about today? All right. Okay. So I'm going to definitely get into the episode. Before I even get in, I want to make an announcement. Season 2 of Reflections, a Conversation with Friends, is coming back this week. Yes. So September 5th at 6 p.m. on either Facebook or YouTube. So if you follow the YouTube channel, Being One Podcast, you can find it live there, or you can also follow the page on Facebook and find the Being One Podcast page there, and watch it live there as well. So we are going live. Okay, it is season 2, and I'm so excited because when I first got the vision for the conversations and just having these types of dialogues, I was just so excited, and I was just like, let me see how it goes for the first season, and we'll see if a second season comes out, because that's how God was showing me, like, it's gonna be like a seasonal thing. And so I'm just so excited that we are coming back with season 2. We have new friends that are on this new season, and so we'll be listening and hearing their perspectives on different topics that is brought to the table. And so that will be 6 p.m. Eastern time. So I do hope that many of you guys do tune in on Saturday at 6 p.m. for the season 2 premiere of Reflections. And I think that's pretty much it. Well, I did not record last week. It was a lot going on. So I was not able to produce or upload an episode last week, but I am, obviously y'all are listening this week, so I'm back this week for sure. Just, really just trying to be consistent and not allowing outside things to hinder, producing and putting things like these episodes out for you all. So let's just go ahead and get into the episode. Don't count it out. So recently, or with the last episodes, it's been talking a lot about, planning, making plans, God ordering our steps. And I just really felt God for the last 2 weeks, God just been saying, like, put on my heart, don't count it out. Don't count it out. Right. And, I'm always like, okay, God, is this for me? Is this for the podcast? Let me know. And I definitely got the release to, this is the word for you all, and it's don't count it out. And so what I even mean by that, and God was just showing me, was just like, don't count it out and don't count yourself out. I mean, what that means is like, most times, right, God will show us something, he would tell us something, and we see like this broad general idea, or we get an idea of something, right? And what happens sometimes is in the season that we're in the year that we're in the life that we're living, it's just like, I mean, yeah, but no, right? Like, we're like, yeah, but no, right? And so we count ourselves out about certain things. We start to, cut certain things out. We start to settle with certain things, settle with certain ideas, because, the steps to that plan, the steps to that dream, the steps to that vision, it just doesn't seem feasible, right? It just kind of seems impossible. And so what we start to do is we start to cut ourselves out. Maybe God said, look, he showed you, you're going to be at an Ivy League school. And you're like, I don't got no GPA for no Ivy League school. Like, that's dead. Like, you know what I mean? Then we start to speak these things over our lives when God already said something, what it was. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and going a little bit deeper with that idea, right? Yes. Oh, I love this part of the podcast because I get to read your reviews. All right. So on the Apple Podcast, I have a review on here, and it is coming from Cassidy W. And it says, awesome podcast. She rated it a 5-star. Thank you so much. And it reads, the Let's Plan episode was awesome. I learned that it's okay to make plans, but make sure we talk them out with God first. Planning with God. So she wrote hashtag Planning with God. Thank you so much for leaving a review, Cassidy. And I just want to encourage you all, it doesn't matter what platform you're listening to it on, YouTube, Facebook, whatever it is, however you're listening to it on Spotify, get your reviews somewhere, okay? It will be very actually convenient to get it on Apple Podcasts. But I mean, if you even want to send me a message with a review, I would definitely read it that way as well. But I definitely want to highlight you all for leaving reviews and giving this a 5-star rating. Just be sure to continue to share the podcast, listen to it, and leave your star ratings and review. All right. Thank you so much. And so I just want to get into Genesis, and we're talking about Abraham and Sarah. And so before I even get into that, I don't know about y'all, but whenever it was taught to me or whenever I heard the story about Abraham and Sarah, it was always that, God told Abraham that Sarah was going to have a son, or Sarah was going to have a child. And it was like all these years passed and Sarah never had a child. And so Sarah was just like, you know what? Let me just figure something out. And, you go ahead and sleep with my maid and y'all, create a baby or whatever. And so how I've always heard it was that, Sarah was just being impatient. Sarah was going before God. I was doing a study on it. And I'm like, whoa there. I did not know the events was taking place like this. So, in Genesis, verse 6, Genesis 16, or no, even prior to that, let's actually start Genesis 15. So in Genesis 15 is where God initially kind of gave that promise to Abram. At the time, his name was Abram, but I'll just call him Abraham for the sake of y'all to understand. Okay. So he gave this promise to Abraham, right? Because he was doing all these things and Abraham was like, all right, cool. You're blessing me. But I mean, what good are the blessings if I don't have a son, somebody to inherit these things? And so he even suggested at the time, Abraham was like, I mean, I have a servant, he's probably going to be the one to inherit all my wealth. And so God was like, no, you're going to have a heir of your own. You will have your own son. Right. And so God even took him outside and was just like, look at the sky. This is how many descendants you will have. Look at all the stars in the sky. These are the descendants you will have. Right. So this is Genesis 15. I'm just kind of summarizing what Genesis 15 was saying. But this was the introduction to the promise that God was promising Abraham. Right. So it's funny because in Genesis 16 now, I'm not sure. It doesn't say in the Bible whether or not Abraham shared this promise that God gave him to Sarah. I guess we're left to assume so. But in Genesis 16, it then, starts off talking about how Sarah, which is Abraham's wife, had not, she wasn't able to bear children, right? She kind of, peeped her servant or whatever and was just like, I mean, I guess she probably can give, she can give birth. So she tells Abraham, she says, the Lord has prevented me from having children, right? Go and sleep with my servant, right? I'll read it and then I'll dissect, right? So first of all, here is Sarah saying, the Lord has prevented me from having children. This right there is a bold statement. That is a very bold statement. What? A very bold statement. And so Sarah made an inaccurate assumption, right? She made an assumption about God because of what she didn't see, right? Some years have passed, Abraham probably said, God said I'm going to have a son. Sarah was looking like, well, I'm only getting older. You're getting older. I mean, it's just this doesn't seem like it's going to happen, right? And so she makes an assumption in a season where she didn't see this thing taking place, this thing happening, and makes an accurate assumption about God, saying, well, God just, restricted me. He restrained me from having children. First of all, who told you that? Who told you that? Right? And so she counted herself out. She's just like, God prevented me from having children. I bet God was just like, girl, what? What are you talking about? And I'm just like, how many times though do we do that? And this, thank you God for reminding me. But this is where this podcast episode, even the inspiration was from. I was on a live. I can't remember the live I was on. I think it was like Latoya Luckett and Cora Jakes. And there was they were just like putting people on and, you know, sharing the live or whatever, and people were getting on the live, and this woman had came on and she was talking about how, you know, she was experiencing like infertility, and like she wasn't, you know, she hasn't been able to have any kids, and so she's just like, then she goes to say, well, honestly, I don't really know what I would be doing with kids right now, and, you know, I can see why God didn't want to give me any kids. Like, I just can't even see like my life with kids right now. Like, she was saying things like that, and she's like, and I take care of all my nieces and nephews and my cousins and stuff, so I mean, I already have a lot on my plate, right? And I'm just like literally listening to her talk, and I'm like, I started typing in the comments. Yeah, I be really active in comments, but I started typing in the comments, and I was just like, don't speak that over your life. Like, don't count it out. You don't know what God can do. And that's when God just started, you know, speaking heavily to me about counting ourselves out, cutting that thing out. Like, who told you that? Like, who told you just because you got to a certain age, maybe you got to, you know, age 40, just because you got to this age where the world is saying, look, you know, when you get to this age, it's going to be difficult to have children, or you may run the risk of having complications. We know these things. We see these statistics, and we say, well, I guess when I get to 40, having kids is just dead. Having kids, God just prevented me from having kids. Who said that? Right? And I was just hearing this lady talk, and I'm just like, girl, what? Don't say that over your life. Don't speak that over your life. Don't cut God out. Who told you that? And so what happens a lot of times is we begin to count ourselves out from things, and we start to like imagine, and we start to, you know, romanticize, you know, our life without it, right? Well, I can't really see myself having kids. You know, you wanted some kids. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? Like, what does that even mean? Like, oh, I can't even, like, you know, I wouldn't be able to go here and here and here if I had kids. Like, no, don't say that. Like, don't romanticize something just because you don't see it, just because it doesn't seem feasible in that season. Like, it can come in the next season. Like, I literally was praying for that lady. I'm like, God, open up her womb so she can have a child if it's in your will. Like, you know, because I just felt so bad, because I get that a lot. I hear that a lot. Maybe it's a GPA, right? I was talking about Ivy League schools. I hear so many times people will count themselves out, like, oh, you need a 3.5 to get into this school. I got a 3.0. I guess I'm not going. Like, what? No. Like, no, don't do that, and don't say that. God said you're going to that school. God said you're going to be, you know, this in this profession. You're going to be a nurse. You're going to go to nursing school. Well, who are you? Like, why would you say that? I'm like, look, one thing about me and my relationship with God is just like, look, what is for me is for me. What is for you is for you, right? I don't care about statistics. I don't care about what the numbers looking like. I don't care that it seems impossible. If God said it, I'm applying, like, I'm doing it. You know what I mean? And obviously, like, speaking from experiences, like, I literally was one to cut myself out from things all the time. I cut it out. I was just like, oh, well, you know, I don't know, like, I don't even know how to further explain what I'm trying to say, but I don't know, we start saying things, like making excuses for why things are not happening, and we make an excuse, and we begin to romanticize really a life without it. Like, oh, well, you know, I wasn't meant to go to school anyways because I was going to take care of my family, or, you know, I ended up getting pregnant, so school wasn't even in the works for me. Like, what? No, that's not even true. Like, you know, God told you was going to school. You know, God told you was going to get that degree. Like, just because you had a child doesn't mean that stopped. Doesn't mean that God changed his mind about it. And that's a lot of times what happened. But anyways, going back to Sarah, she counted herself out, right? And so then she goes and says, you know, go and sleep with my servant, right? So she counted it out. She counted herself out because she took herself out of the equation. Like, obviously it's not going to happen for me. You know what? So I'm going to count myself out. I counted out, and then I'm going to figure it out, right? Like, she counted herself out, and then she went to figure it out. And by her figuring it out, she goes, you know what? She looks at her servant. She can have a child. Y'all go ahead and sleep together, and y'all make this baby, and I'll just live through her, right? I'll live through her. Ooh, because how many times, like, you know, our parents, or, you know, parents in general, they will have a vision, they will have a dream about something, but yet because they felt like, maybe they had to settle in a season for a certain career or a certain job, and then they start having their kids and they go and they say, I'm gonna just live through them. Like, I really wanted to be a dancer, but obviously, like, God, it ain't happening for me. I got bills to pay, I got kids to raise or whatever. So I'm gonna just live through my child. I'm gonna put my child in dance classes and they're gonna be the dancer and I'm gonna live through them. Like, no. And so what happens? What happens is we begin to put an expectation on someone else because we counted ourselves out because the season didn't seem possible, right? It didn't seem possible in that season. And so we start putting an expectation on someone else. We want to see that other person fulfill that thing because we counted ourselves out. When God is like, I called you to do that. I told you you're going to do that. What made you go put down someone else? Why would Sarah? God said, listen, Abraham, like, why would you count yourself out when you guys are in a covenant together? You guys are one. You, Abraham and Sarah, you are one. Why would you count yourself out and now put Hagar into the situation? Why would you now put the expectation on Hagar to give birth to a son, for the son to be the heir, for that son now to be what God was talking about when he said your descendants will be many? Why would you put that expectation on Hagar? Like, what? Like, why would you count yourself out and then try to figure it out? All right. So with this part of the segment of the Being One podcast, all right, I highlight a kingdom citizen, right? So who I see is really doing the thing in the kingdom, right? And so last week I mentioned Monica Theophilus, right? And I'm also going to talk about her later on in this episode, but I wanted to highlight Monica Tooks, right? So she is like a new blogger on the block, right? You know that new girl on the block, new blogger on the block. And I just want to highlight her. She has a blog. She, posts, recap videos on her social media platforms, just kind of recapping what her blogs are about. And they have been very powerful and they've been touching me and my soul and my spirit. And so I just wanted to highlight her and, just encourage her to keep on going. And she will also, hint, hint, she will also be a part of season 2 reflections, a conversation with friends. So I'm definitely going to link her website for her blogs on the show notes. So be sure to check her out. It is called Tooks Time. Again, that is Monica Tooks. We see you and continue doing the work for the kingdom. God bless you. And let's get back to the show. And then so talking about figuring it out, right? What happens a lot of times is when we count ourselves out and we try to figure it out, what happens is we do not acknowledge God in our figuring these things out. We just don't do it, right? And I'm thinking about Proverbs 3 verse 5 where it talks about, acknowledging God in all of our ways, right? And so when we tend to try to figure things out, we're not acknowledging God. Let's be honest. We're not acknowledging him, right? Because we're like, okay, God, you showed me this, you said we were going to have a child, right? Okay, cool. I'm old. I'm just, it seems like my womb is shut up. So you know what? Let me go ahead and figure this out so we can see your plan come to life for real. And go ahead and do that. We ain't consult God about it. Sarah ain't consult God about it. Sarah ain't go and fast about it and ask God, okay, God, what's happening? She went and figured it out. Right. And too many of us are out here just trying to figure it out. Like, no, let's not do that. Right. Like, don't cut ourselves out, cut it out and then try to figure it out. Like, no, let's not do that. Verse 3 of Genesis 16, it says, so then, Abraham took Hagar as a wife. Right. And, they slept together and, she conceived. Right. So let me tell y'all something, all right? With God's promises does not come with entanglements. Like, it don't come with sorrow. It don't come with pain. It surely does not come with entanglements, right? And so what happened is here is Sarah who counted herself out. She said, look, I'm not going to have a child. It's just not happening. So let me figure it out, right? She didn't consult God. She went and figured it out for herself. She told Abraham, look, go ahead and, do what you got to do with Hagar so we can see this thing happen through her. We can live through her. I can live through her, right? So then now here comes someone else into the situation. Here comes Hagar now. Here was first a covenant relationship, a marriage between Abraham and Sarah, right? Here's Sarah trying to figure it out. Well, I'm going to say Abraham and Sarah because I'm not going to put all the blame on Sarah. But here's Abraham and Sarah trying to figure it out. And now they done brought someone else into the situation, right? Now they just created an entanglement because now Abraham went and married Hagar, right? A whole entanglement. We was talking about entanglements on one of the conversations. It was like the season finale of Reflections. And we were talking about sex and entanglements. And how, a lot of times the reason why we get entangled with things, we get entangled in relationships is because we failed to consult God, right? Whenever you find yourself entangled in something, like it could be relationally, career-wise, in your own head, you're just entangled in your own mind, is because somewhere down the line we stop consulting God, or maybe we haven't been consulting God this whole time, and so we're just in a big old mess, right? And so what happened is the consulting God didn't take place, and so now here an entanglement formed because now we have Hagar in the picture, and now Hagar is pregnant, right? So now we have Hagar and her child in the picture, right? So now here's this entanglement. And if you read even, continue reading after verse 3 of Genesis chapter 16, it talks about how, there was like strife because, here's Hagar being pregnant and now she feels some type of way, like, she's a little bit, above Sarah, the first wife. And so Sarah had to kick her out. It was a whole thing. But a whole entanglement, right? Because she was trying to figure it out. Anyways. Why is this? Why is that? Right? In the beginning, again, when I first talked about the introduction of the promise, when God first gave Abraham the promise that he will have a son, right? He didn't give the details. He didn't say Sarah's going to have it. He didn't say Sarah's going to have it in 10 years. He didn't say Sarah's going to have it tomorrow, right? He didn't give the details. All he said was, you're going to have a son. You're going to have a son. The details wasn't there. He just said, you're going to have a son, right? And so the lack of details, what happens to us a lot of times is because of the lack of details. The lack of details, what happens is it begins to produce a lack of faith, right? And that is so backwards, but that is just how our mind works sometimes. We tend to put in a lot of faith into things that we know the details of. Our faith should not be dependent on the amount of information we know or don't know. That's not how faith works, right? It's easy to have faith when we know all the details. All right, so at A, B, C, D, E, F, okay, cool, I got that. I can put my trust in that. I can put my faith in that because I know the details. But when you say, oh, Samantha, you're going to be the president. Yeah. Like, first of all, I don't even have a desire for that. Like, I don't have a desire to be that. How is that even going to work? I don't even come from a family of money. How am I going to campaign? Like, do I need a seat? Do I need to be a governor first? Like, do I be a lawyer first? Like, what do I do? Like, how does this work? Right? And so here's this broad thing. And let me tell you, I can see it. And it happens all the times where we're like, okay, we cut ourselves out and we're like, I don't think God meant the president of the United States. Maybe he meant like the president of McDonald's or the president of my club. Here it is. Wow, the president of my... We start to settle with things because we cut ourselves out. Like, nah, that can't be for me. Like, there's no way. Like, I'm black, or my family, they're not politicians, and I don't have a background of politics, right? We start to reason, we start to count ourselves out from big things, and we settle with the little things because it just doesn't seem possible, right? And so for Sarah, it didn't seem possible. She was old. And so it's easy to have faith. And when we know exactly what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and how it's going to happen, that's easy. And that's not faith. Like, it's not. It's not faith. If we know what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and when it's going to happen, it's not faith. So we're going to go all the way down to Genesis 18 now. And in Genesis 18, right, so this is after Hagar gives birth to the son, is Ishmael. It makes sense for Abraham and Sarah. I mean, Abraham's like, cool, like, here's the son God was talking about. I mean, I thought it was coming from Sarah, but, we figured it out, and it wasn't coming from Sarah, but we got it from Hagar, my second wife. Here's my son, whatever, right? So here, and we go to Genesis 18, right? In Genesis 18, Abraham gets some visitors, right? and the visitors are like, they're talking, and then they ask about Sarah, and then they say, in the year, in the year coming, she's gonna have a son, like she's gonna have a child, right? And Sarah heard this. She heard this, and she literally laughed to herself and was like, nah, like what? And so what I have here is like, don't cut yourself out, right? Like Sarah cut herself out. The reason why she cut herself out is because she didn't hear it in faith, right? She heard it and looked at her season, and she began to use terms like, I'm old, I'm dried up. How? They talking funny. Like what? They're comedians. Like there's no way. We already figured it out. He has Ishmael, we're straight, Hagar gave birth to the son God was talking about, we're good. Like what are they talking about? I'm gonna have a birth. Like we already figured it out. Like we're not having a child, right? But it's because she didn't hear it in faith, right? And too many times, God will have someone speak over our lives. We'll hear a message in church, we'll be prophesied to, and we tend to hear these things and we receive it or we don't receive it because of the season we're in. We look at the season, we look at our bank account, we look at our current situation, and we're just like, that don't really make sense, right? But instead of hearing things or receiving things based off of our current situation or the current season that we're in, we need to receive it. We need to look at it in faith, right? If this is God's will, let I receive this in faith, right? It doesn't make sense right now, but I'm still receiving it, right? And instead of receiving it, instead of Sarah receiving it, she blocked it, right? What did she do? She counted herself out. Like, no, I'm old. Like, this ain't happening. Like, what's going on? And so, these are some declarations. I'm all about words of affirmation, right? Instead of saying like, how would it be me? I want you to start saying, how would it not be me? Because too many times we sit there and we count ourselves out because we're just like, why me? How would that be me? How is that even possible for me? No, we need to start switching our words and say, how could it not be me? Why would it not be me? Right? I don't deserve this. No, I do deserve this. Right? When we count ourselves out, start to settle for things less than what God has told us or what God has promised us, that's insulting to him, right? Because in verse 14, it says, is it too hard for God? Like, God is just like, wait, hold up. Is it too hard for me? Like, why is Sarah laughing? Like, she's insulting me. She's saying that it's too hard, that I can't do the impossible, right? And so I just want you to think about yourself right now in the season that you're in. We are in year 2020, right? A lot of us didn't see this happening. A lot of us didn't see this coming. A lot of us didn't think that we're going to be in quarantine or on shutdown for months. We didn't know that, we weren't going to be able to celebrate our birthdays the way that we thought we would, right? We didn't know that we wouldn't be able to go on trips the way we had planned to go on trips, right? In the beginning of the year. A lot of things kind of switched. A lot of things we didn't see coming, right? And I've been talking about it. I feel like I've been talking about it all year with all the episodes and, was saying like, look, do not cut God out. Do not cut him out. Do not cut that thing out. Whatever it is, continue to believe that thing will happen in faith, right? Even if the season doesn't seem going to happen, even if the world is making it seem like things are not going to happen for us, continue to believe God. God says it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Like, I don't know. Like, I literally, like, y'all, but I'm talking from a place that literally I've been on the other side, right? I've been on that side where I'm just like, it ain't going to happen. And I've literally seen God just do so much in such a short time frame that I'm just like, whoa, all this happened? Like, when they said it wouldn't happen, when they made it seem like it wouldn't happen, what? I wasn't working and I was making all this money, like all these things that I just could not have even pictured. Like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting emotional. Like certain things that I just didn't even feel like I would have the money to do or the money to purchase or, the way I seen it, it just didn't seem possible. And God literally made a way. Like, and I'm just like, whoa, that's what happens when you just continue to hold on and have faith, right? Like, don't cut yourself out. Don't cut that thing out. Like, whatever it is that you wrote, you continue to pray God about that. Continue to pray about it. It's going to happen, right? Like, God is not a man that he shall lie. I spoke about it in the last episode. on this part, I get to share with you all what I've been listening to and what have I been reading. All right. So I want to share the song first, and the song I've been listening to is Excess Love, and that can be found, I think JJ Harrison actually does a remix, but the original artist, I believe, is like Mercy Chinwo, like an African Mercy Chinwo. But y'all, this song right here, when I tell you I'm screaming, it's like, Jesus, you love me too much. Oh, like, yo, why he love me so much? Oh, hey. Okay, so I literally just been listening to that, and that's really been a song I wanted to share with you all. Encouraging you guys to listen to it for yourself and let it minister it to you. Because man, the love of God is just so much I can't even comprehend. And then let's talk about the book. All right. So I've recently gotten some books. I've gotten some new books sent to me that I've ordered, and I've recently been able to kind of grab them in my hand. They've been ordered, but I wasn't like at like my house or whatever to pick them up. So now I have them in my hand, and I started reading. And so the book that I'm reading is from actually Monica Theophilus, who I've mentioned previously. And the name of the book is How We Met, Brokenness and Rejection Meets Jesus, right? And I've been reading this book, and I'm like, look, girl, yes. All right. So I'll also link it as well in the show notes. But I do love how, like, when you're reading it, there's like a prayer that she provides. If you want to take notes, you can take notes, because there's definitely space, and I really love that about it. But I do want to briefly just read a sentence. And it's coming from page 9, and it reads that my lack of knowledge of the Holy One caused me to reject his truth and follow the patterns of this world. And I just thought that was so important to highlight, because so many times, you know, when I'm speaking to people, when I'm ministering to people, it's a lack of knowledge that they have about God that makes them reject the truth, right? It's a lot of religion that they've been taught. It's a lot of religion that they know, and they lack the relationship part of, you know, knowing God and knowing Jesus Christ for themselves. And so because of that, you know, it was like religion was kind of like, it was a turnoff, right? And so if they rejected his truth, they rejected him for who he is, they rejected him, and they're just following the patterns of the world. Well, I'm not too sure about the patterns y'all got going on in the church, so I'm gonna just follow the pattern of the world, right? Not that was so important, because that is a lot of our stories. That was my story as well. You know, that the lack of knowledge of who Christ is, it caused me to reject his truth and just follow what the world was doing. So I just wanted to highlight that, but I'll definitely keep y'all updated with this book. Leave a review on it as well, but I will link, you know, that book in the bio as well, How We Met by Monica Theophilus, encouraging you to, you know, order the book and read the book for yourself. And so let's get right back to the episode. God's word is going to come to pass. Like, he's not a man that's going to lie. Like, you don't have to sit there and try to figure it out. Continue to consult God about it. If it's like, man, God, is this in the season is going to happen? Is this year is going to happen? Ask him instead of trying to figure it out for yourself, right? Don't insult God. God can literally, I tell people all the time, I'm like, y'all don't realize. Do you know the God that I serve? Do you know the God that you serve? Who can literally, tomorrow you can wake up and your whole life is different? Like, what? Like, do you know you can be down right now and you literally go up 10 steps tomorrow? Like, what? Like, what I'm telling you, this is the God that I serve. And I just know that 2020, like, although so much been happening, right? We lost Chadwick Boseman, right? Who was the character for Black Panther. All these deaths, even for myself. I've been through to so many funerals this year. Like, I haven't been to this many funerals in a time frame of like 10 years, And I went through so many in 1 year. All these things, all these thoughts that I was having this year. And I had to pray so much. I don't even know if I shared this, but I literally had to pray and rebuke the spirit or the thought of premature death, right? I started to think, and I'm like, man, what if I die tomorrow? Or, what if something happens to me? Or, I started thinking these things, counting myself out. Why? I'm like, but God showed me so many things. He showed me so many great things. He showed me all these things that was going to happen that hasn't happened yet. Why am I counting myself out? Because of what's happening right now in this season? Because all these deaths are happening around me? Like, I literally sat there and was just like, okay, this is coming too close to home. Why are all these deaths happening around me? I would literally go to sleep, y'all, and dream of death. Like, literally people close to me just keep dying. I'm like, okay, is this a sign? Is it the death angel that's near is knocking on my door? Like, what's going on, right? I started cutting myself out of so many things. I started settling to think, well, maybe I fulfill my purpose, y'all. Like, come, like, listen. I started to say things like, maybe I already feel my purpose and it's my time. I literally, y'all, I had to pray over myself. I put my hand on my head and I literally had to rebuke the thoughts of premature death. Like, I literally had to say, look, I will live and not die and declare the works of the Lord. Like, the devil is a liar. Like, I started literally, like I was talking about how we begin to romanticize things. Like, I started to romanticize, like, you know, my purpose has been fulfilled. Maybe that's what's happening. You know, because all this death around me, I keep dreaming about it. Is it coming? Is gonna knock on my door? Like, what's going on? And the devil is a liar. There's been so many things that God is showing me. There's been so many things that has not been done yet. And I'm like, no, I will live and these things will be done. Like, my purpose has not been fulfilled. The devil is a liar to have me thinking this way. And just like Sarah, like, don't try to figure it out for yourself. Like, you know what I mean? And to be honest, a lot of times we look at Sarah and we're just like, well, Sarah, sis, you couldn't wait. But no, a lot of us can relate. A lot of us have been in Sarah's shoes. We're probably in her shoe right now, right? God showed us something and it doesn't seem like the way he showed it, I got to figure it out, right? Like, we got to figure it out. No, I talked about let's plan. And I said, look, it's okay to plan. We just got to consult God, right? It's okay to question God about what he showed you. It's okay to consult God about what he has shown you. God is not just like, all right, I'm going to show you, go figure it out and have fun. No, God is like, I didn't even show you everything. I didn't even show you step by step because I need you to lean on me. I need you to trust me. I need you to have faith on me and continue to consult me so we can get to that destination, so we can get to that thing that I've shown you, so the promise that I promised you can be fulfilled, right? And so I just want to encourage y'all, look, don't count God out. Don't be insulting God in this season. Don't be insulting God this year. Like, man, God, I guess we're going to try again in 2021. Don't insult God. No. What? Don't do that. And yeah, like, don't cut yourself out. Like, you are worthy. Let me tell you something. You are worthy. We talked about imposter syndrome, how, you know, so many times we can, you know, look at ourselves and we're just like, it ain't gonna happen for me. It can happen for everybody else. I just don't see it happening for me. Like, don't cut yourself out. If you didn't listen to that episode, go listen to that episode, because I don't want to sit here and keep prolonging, but go listen to that episode. Like, it's like every episode has been etching towards this, and I don't know why God just has me on it for so long, but I feel like whoever is listening, whoever needs to hear this, another reminder: don't cut yourself out. Don't cut it out, right? Don't cut that plan out. Don't cut that promise out. Don't settle for mediocre. Come on now, don't settle for mediocre. Do not settle for mediocrity, right? What's for you is for you. Have faith in God. Trust God. Continue to consult him. Like, I'm literally so like hyped up. I'm just like, man, God, I'm gonna write in my journal. I'm gonna write everything that you're showing me. I'm gonna write everything that I'm believing you for. Like, I'm not settling with what's happening right now in the world. I'm not settling for the mediocrity. Like, I'm believing you, God, for more. I'm believing you, God, for me to go from glory to glory. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and settle and wait for 2021 I don't know. Listen, we don't know what 2021 gonna bring. We don't. Like, why are we pausing and stopping? Like, I can't remember the title, but I was talking about how, you know, God was just like, who told y'all to sit down? Like, who told you to sit? I ain't tell you to sit down. What are you doing? Like, it doesn't matter that everybody else in the world is sitting down. I ain't call you to sit down, right? And so God is just like, what are y'all doing? Like, don't cut yourself out and don't cut me out. Don't insult me. Don't insult me, right? Because I am the God of the impossible, right? What is impossible to man is possible with God. And so we just got to continue to consult God. We got to continue to be on his team. We got to continue to work with him, right? And not just for him, but work with him, work hand in hand with God, and be like, God, what's up? What's going on today? I wake up in the morning, I'm like, God, what are we doing today, right? What is the purpose that needs to be fulfilled today? Help me to pursue purpose on today, right? So don't cut yourself out. Do not be like Sarah. Yes, Sarah did still give birth, but there was a whole entanglement process that happened because the both of them, they're one. I'm not going to sit here and keep blaming my girl Sarah, right? The one, Abraham and Sarah, right? They counted Sarah having the child out and tried to figure out without consulting God and got into a whole entanglement, right? We don't want that. we're done with entanglements, right? Jada Pinkett and Will Smith, like, they brought that to light this year, and we're like, yeah, that's dead. Like, we're not doing that, right? So let's not get ourselves into any more entanglements in 2020. We're trying to get ourselves out of these entanglements. And so in order to avoid that, continue to consult God. And that's all I gotta say, y'all. Y'all know I love y'all, but Jesus loves you so much. Y'all be blessed, be blessed, be blessed.